Hello everyone, good evening. Let's get started. Okay, I'm starting the classes recording so that you can go through it later. I'll share my screen. Okay, so yesterday we were talking about client and server architecture. So we discussed about what is a client, what is a server. Client sends an API request, and the API request contains protocols such as HTTP, HTTPS. Every request is associated with HTTP method, which explains what type of request we are sending to server, such as get, post, put, patch, delete. Okay, so examples of client we have discussed. Browser is a tool that we use. Postman is a tool that we are learning in this course, which is a client. Examples of server, we have seen Tomcat, Microsoft IIS, Linux, Macintosh, and hardware servers. Guys, go on mute. I'll mute everyone. Unmute when you have a question. Okay, so yesterday we have discussed until this part. Now today we'll continue what is request headers. And then we'll talk about response headers, response description, response code, API response. So coming to request headers, right? So let us write here request headers. Now request headers plays a very important role while testing the APIs because they contain some sensitive data and some important information along with the request. So if you look at the diagram, we know that the client is sending a request, right? Every request is associated with a protocol. Every request is associated with a HTTP method. Similarly, every request is associated with few request headers. But we should know what is request headers first before we even talk about the technical aspects of it. So I will say the definition is it is the additional metadata sent by client to the server along with request. So request headers are called as additional metadata. Now you might say, what do I mean by metadata, right? So metadata has multiple meanings. So this is the file that I'm saving on my computer, right? So if I go to my downloads, here you will see. So this is the rough notes I'm preparing. And if you see here, when I right click on this file and go to properties, you can see the location where it is saved on my computer. You can see what is the size of the file. You can see when was it created, when was it modified, when was it accessed. You can see some information like who created it, right? And what are the versions maintained of this, right? So if you mouse over also, you will see a lot of data. Who is the author? What is the size? What is the type of the file? What is the date modified? All that is called as metadata. Okay. So every request will contain some additional information about it. That's called as metadata. And in API testing or in client and server architecture, we have so many request headers that provide additional data to the server. Let's talk about few of them that's important for a test engineer. So you have something called connection. Then you have something called user agent. Then you have something called authorization, content type, accept, accept language, etc. These are few of the request headers I wanted to talk. There are so many others which we can obviously talk if needed. Excuse me. So each of these headers has a certain meaning. Okay. Connection header will tell whether client and server are already connected with each other or disconnected with each other. So if the client and server are already connected, the value of it will be keep alive. So connection will be keep alive. If the client and server are disconnected, the value will be close, meaning client and server are disconnected. Understand that only when the connection is keep alive, client and server are connected. Hence, the request can go to the server. Right? It is like when the bridge is established between client and server, only then the request can go and the response can come on this bridge. So connection has to be always established. Otherwise, we cannot send a request to server. So one of the important request headers we have is connection. Okay. Now who sends this connection request header? Client will send it, because the request headers is nothing but an additional request information, and request is always sent by client, never by server. So therefore request headers are sent by client and connection is also sent by client. So client tells the server that please remember that our connection is already open, so value will be connection is keep alive. After that only this request can go to server. So if the request is not established, if the connection is not established, the request can never go, because the client does not know how to send the request, in which path it has to send the request, to whom it has to send the request. It's a mode of communication like that. So connection can be keep alive when both are connected. Connection will be closed when both are disconnected. Then you have user agent. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So user agent is, it will tell who am I. Okay. So user agent is like who am I. So the client will tell the server who is the client. So that server will record it that this request is coming from so and so client. So client will say I am coming from Windows operating system, Windows 10, 64-bit operating system, and the request is coming from Chrome browser, and the version of Chrome browser is 120.1.2. So like that. So user agent will tell the OS details and the browser details. Okay, this happens even if you send any request on current browser also. Like if I type gmail.com, every day we do that, right? Type google.com, gmail.com, yahoo.com, ishatrainingsolutions.com, whatever URL you type on the browser, the server will know from which operating system the request is coming, from which browser the request is coming. Who is telling the server? The guy called user agent is telling it. So browsers are intelligent to tell the server from where the request is coming. That is user agent. Then we have another header called authorization. Sometimes the request that we are sending to server, right? These requests might need you to enter username and password. That's an authorization. So that data goes in authorization header. Sometimes the request you are sending might ask you to enter some access token, which we call it as bearer access token. That you will enter in authorization. Sometimes the request you are sending to the server goes as a key, a unique key. That also goes as an authorization token. And if you have heard of OAuth 2 authentication, OAuth 1 authentication, JSON Web Tokens authentication, AWS signature authentication, basic authorization, digest authorization, API key, bearer access token authorizations. If you have heard of them, all those values will come under authorization. Okay, so it contains user credentials. Okay, this request header contains user credentials so that server will validate if the credentials are valid, then only the request is entertained for processing purpose. Then you have another header called content type. Content type is very simple, type of content or type of format in which the request is sent by client to the server. So if you see the diagram, we know that the client is sending request. The request will contain some username and password or credit card number or my first name, last name, or it contains some data based on your project requirement. So that request should go in JSON format, maybe sometimes XML or HTML or text or YAML or any other format, right? How does the server know in which format a client is sending the data? Server should know in which format client is sending the data. So client uses something called content type request header, and the value of it will be JSON if you are sending the data in JSON. And the value of content type will be XML if you are sending the data in XML. Okay. So when I'm showing this in Postman tool, you will mostly understand it. For now, you need to understand what is the definition, what is the purpose, or what is the intention of each header. So content type will describe in which format the client is sending the request to server. Then you have accept. Accept is like when the server gives a response, if we look at the diagram, the server is giving you a response, right, to the client. The server says, okay, I'm giving you the response in XML format. Client might say, I don't prefer XML. Is it possible to give it in JSON? So server says, you should have told me earlier, not now, because I've already sent the data. So next time onwards, client will say that, okay, if I have any preference of receiving the response, I will put it under accept. So it is client preference format to receive the server response. Okay. So if client says I'm interested in JSON format, accept will be JSON. So server will say, okay, my client wants the response in JSON. Let me see if it is possible. I will give the response in JSON. If not possible, then the server will give in the format in which developer has described it. Finally, you have accept language. It is also same. It is just the international language in which the response should come to server from server to client. So it is client preference language to receive the server response. Meaning, see, whenever you put anything on the browser, right? So if I go to the browser and type anything, example, this website, let's try something else. Okay, so if you see the content on this page, it is in English language. It is not in any foreign language or international language. It's default English language. Reason is this header. Accept language is given as English. Hence, client is getting the response in English. Some international websites have the options to display the content in any other language, like google.com does that, cisco.com does that. Any international company and their website will support at least a couple of languages. So if I simply take google.com, so here you have some language. Google is offered in these languages, right? So if I click on some other language, this Northern, so now you see I'm getting in some other language. So that is this accept language. When you change the language, accept language will change to that particular format. Okay, so these are few of the request headers. Okay, only few. These are not the entire list of request headers, but these are the important ones that we should know as a test engineer. So I'll write it here. Connection header explains. Okay, connection header explains. Connection header explains whether client and server are connected to each other or disconnected from each other. Then you have user agent. It tells the server from where the request is coming, from which browser, from which operating system the request is coming. Then we have content type. Content type explains in which format the client is sending request to server. Then you have authorization. It contains the user credentials. Then you have accept, which tells the server client preference to receive response body is in JSON or XML. Accept language will tell in which international language like English, Japanese, Chinese, Spanish, French, Telugu, Tamil, whatever, the response has to come. Okay, these are few of the request headers that we will be looking more practically once I switch to Postman tool in the next week. With this, we have completed 50% of discussion about client and server architecture. The remaining 50% is this response headers, response code, response description, which I will discuss right away. But let me take a pause. Are there any questions to me from anyone until now? Anyone has questions? Can unmute and at least confirm so that I know you are attentive and listening to me. Can someone unmute, or you're unable to unmute? Okay, fine. Thanks. I got few confirmations. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's continue the remaining 50% conversation. Now we have response headers, which is the next one. So to talk about response headers, it is also something same as request headers. I will say this is response headers. And the definition is simple. It is the additional metadata sent by server to the client along with response. Same definition. Here also it is metadata. Here also it is metadata. Here it is sent by client to server. Here it is opposite, server to client. Now there are certain response headers that I am going to touch base right now. Again, there are so many response headers. We will just talk about few of them now. We have something called date. Then you have content type here also. Then you have server. Then you have what else is there? Keys are also there. Something like set cookie is there. Yeah, I think that should be okay. There are so many others, but I think these are the common ones that we mostly look at. And then you have something like a content length. So date talks about the date on which server is giving the response. It's a very low priority header, not that important. Generally, if you're sending a request now, you get the response immediately, right? It is not reserved for tomorrow. So if I'm sending the request on 23rd January, the response also will be on 23rd January. So not a significant header. Then you have content type. So this content type and this content type are same. Just that here it is telling you in which format client is sending to server. Here it is opposite. This content type, which is part of response header, the definition will become little change. Type of content or format in which the response is sent by server to the client. So if server is sending the response in JSON, so content type will be JSON. If server is giving the response in XML, content type will be XML. Then you have server. So server typically talks about which server is responding to your request. Obviously, this will tell you whether the developer is using Tomcat server or IIS server or Nginx or CloudFront or some other. Okay, so it is the name and version of server that is responding to client request. That will come. Okay, so this will display the name and version of server that is responding to client request. Then you have content length. Content length is nothing but size of response body. So very simple. It is size of the response body, always in bytes. Whatever response you are getting from server, it will have a size. That is what content length will have. Then you have set cookie. So if server is sending any cookies to the client to remember user preferences or to track user session, that value will be there in set cookie. Okay, so I can say it contains user preferences. Okay, or user session details, etc. Because cookies can be used in 100 different ways. So your developer decides in what way they want to use the cookie. One way is storing the user preferences, like in which language he wants to view the website. That will be there in cookie. Sometimes the user login details are there in the cookie. If developer wants to store the session details in cookie, it will be there in cookie. So it depends upon the developer. Okay, so these are few of the response headers. And let's come back here to the diagram. So we have something called a date. Then we have content type. Then we have content length. Set cookie is also there. Then server name is also there. So these are few of the response headers that server will send to the client. And you will see all these things in Postman while testing. Of course, I don't want you to wait until Postman is shown to you. I will show it on browser also in the next few minutes today. This is about response headers, which the server will send to the client along with response body. And these response headers are mandatory for us to validate it. Okay. Response headers have to be validated at any point of time in API testing because they provide a lot of data to the client. Okay, then the next important thing is we should talk about the last thing, response code and response description. So let me write here a response code. Okay. So response code is nothing but a 3-digit status code that server will send to client to inform what happened to your request. So it is a 3-digit status code sent by server to the client to reveal the status of client request. Okay. So obviously, if you look at the diagram, the client had sent a request and client will be waiting for the entire response to come. So before the response comes, the server will send a response code. Every response code will have a description about the response code called response description. So using the response code and response description, we can conclude whether the response is successfully coming or there is an error or there is a redirection or there is a failure. We will come to know using response code, response description. And one thing you have to remember is the range of response code in the internet is it starts from 100, it goes all the way until 599. So pretty difficult to remember all these response codes, right? Suddenly, if I ask you, tell me what is the meaning of 404, 400, 503, 429, 415, 200, 201, 101, 102, 315. We cannot by heart all these response codes. We have to Google and get the answer. But I can tell you one shortcut how you can memorize these response codes, because as a tester, we need to know all these things. So the industry says divide the response codes like this 100 to 199, which they call it as 1XX series, 200 to 299, which they call it as 2XX series, 300 to 399, which they call it as 3XX series, then 400 to 499, 4XX series, 500 to 599, which they call it as 5XX series. So that is what I have divided. And what the industry says is any number that's between 100 to 199, this response code comes under information category. So they are informational responses. I'll give examples and explain. Anything that comes under 200 to 299, we call it as successful responses. 3XX comes under redirectional responses. 4XX comes under client-side error. 5XX comes under server-side error. And obviously, we do not want to receive any client errors. So let's put it in orange. We do not want to receive any server-side errors while testing the application. And we always wanted to receive success, which is green color. Okay. Now, let me explain you what is informational responses. So the client had sent a request to server. Okay. So the request went from client to server. So this is the request. So this is going all the way from client to server. It is traveling. The request has reached server and the server is processing it. But the client did not receive the response. So client wants to know what happened to the request. Did the server execute it or not yet, right? So to tell the client what happened to this request, the server will send this response code. Initially, it will send a 1XX response code, which contains information about what happened to the request. Example, server will say a response code as 101. Just an example I'm giving. Don't seriously take the number 101. Example, it says 101. So 101 could probably mean processing your request. Okay. Before that, it might send 100, which could it say your request is in the queue process. So it is only an information client is getting from server. What happened to the request? So that kind of examples, that kind of status will come under information. Excuse me. And once the server says, okay, your request is processed, and you get the response in HTML or JSON or YAML or XML or text, then the server gives a successful response, which could be any number from 200 to 299. Based on the request to send, the number is picked. Then you have redirectional responses. So when this server is busy, what this server does is it will have another server in the backend, right? In any production, there are so many servers. So your request might be redirected from this server to this server, or this server to this server, or this server to this server. So one server says, I am busy, so let me forward your request to another server. So that's nothing but a redirection, right? Then the server will give a 3xx response code to client to tell that your request is redirected to another server. Then you have client-side errors, meaning whatever request I have sent, right, to the server, there can be a mistake in my request. Example, my request could be https:// instead of udemy, I'm typing udemy.com. So there is a spelling mistake here, right? So when this request goes to server, the server will check whether this URL exists or not. Since this URL does not exist, the server will give a response saying request invalid because the spelling is not correct. So it will say the page not found, something like that, right? So that is client side error. Now why it is client side? Because who typed the request? The client. Kiran typed invalid request on the client side udemy.com. So I made the mistake. So whenever your request is incorrect, okay, it is not only spelling mistakes. If you're not supplying the mandatory fields, if certain fields are missing, if additional fields are added which a server cannot accept, if your data types are incorrect, if your data length is incorrect, if your data itself is incorrect, the method is not correct, the protocol is not correct. When you make mistakes on the client side, server will throw this error. Finally, server side errors. Your request is valid, but server is very busy. So it has to reject your request. So when the server rejects your request saying I'm unavailable, I am busy, or try later, then you get this error. So these errors are pretty much common in the API testing process. Okay, so you get 1xx, 2xx, 3xx, 4xx, 5xx. These are the response codes, and the response description is nothing but the meaning. So these are informational responses. 2xx is success responses. 3xx is redirectional responses. 4xx is client-side error. 5xx is server-side error. Now, these meanings you have to definitely remember. That's an interview question, by the way. Okay. I'll take a pause before I go deep dive into these response codes. Any questions from anyone? Please say yes or no, something you can.
Hi, can you give another example for the internal server for 500 series error?
Yeah, I'll give. There are a few response codes which I'm going to explain now, and you'll get the answer to your question.
All right, thanks.
Anyone else has questions? Okay, fine. So let me talk about successful responses. We'll go a little deeper in it. So here, common response codes we have to know is 200, which means OK. So 200 is the response code. To OK is the response message or response description. Then you have 201, which means created. Then 202, which means accepted. 204, which means no content. These four things are important for us to memorize because these are everyday response codes we deal while testing the applications. Let me explain you when do we get these response codes, under what circumstances. So when I talk about 200 OK, this response code comes when the get API request that you have sent to server is successfully processed by server. Most of the times, get API request, when you test it using Postman tool or when it is executed on the browser or mobile app indirectly, and the server is giving the response, then you get 200 OK. Example will be, type any request that you are aware of on the browser. Of course, Postman is also there, but now I'm showing only browser. So this is the request I have. I'm sending to server. And if you see, did I get a response? Yes, I did get the response. So this is a scenario of 200 OK. Because my get request, right? I'm asking server, get me the data of this URL. So this is a 200 OK example. Not only this, when I type any URL on the browser, now I got the response successfully, right? I'm able to see the home page of this particular URL. This is also an example of 200 OK, where get request is successfully executed. Then you have 201 created. This will come when your post API request has been successfully executed. We know, we have discussed about post method yesterday. Post is used to create a new data on the server or create a new object, create a new resource on the server. So example of that will be, see, when I click on find flights, I'm fetching the flights. That is also get request. When I click on choose the flight, it will open the details of this flight. That is also get request. When I fill all the details and click on purchase flight, my flight ticket is booked. Thank you for your purchase today. So did I create an order? Yes, this is the order I created. So clicking on this purchase flight button is creating a new ticket in the database, a new order in the database, a new ID in the database. So that is an example of 201 created, because that's a post request. So whenever you are creating something and that creation is successfully done, then the server will send 201 created response code to client. So every time I send an email and the email says message is sent, that is when 201 created response code comes from server to client. In the WhatsApp, when I say good morning, or when I forward lot of messages, every message that is sent to the recipient is a 201 created, because you are creating data on the WhatsApp, right? And sometimes you post on social media. Every post that you post successfully is an example of 201 created. Then 202 accepted is something that comes when you use put or patch API request. So when your update action is successfully completed, that is when the server will give 202 accepted response code. Example, I have updated my password on my Gmail and the password has changed successfully, then it's a 202 accepted. I have sent a message on WhatsApp and there is a spelling mistake. So I edit the message, I correct the message. That is 202 accepted because I have updated something. Okay. Or maybe I'm traveling to somewhere else this weekend. So, and I update my profile saying, okay, my current city is no longer Hyderabad. My current city is Goa. So I have updated my profile about the city where I'm currently staying. So it is 202 accepted. Then we have 204 no content. This will come when your delete API request is successfully executed and your data is deleted. Like whatever I delete, maybe this ticket ID I'm deleting if I have that privilege. Right now I don't have it, but when I delete something, that is when 204 comes from server to client. So these are 4 common response codes we have to remember. These are by the industry. Okay, these are by the book. These are the industry standards. But sometimes, okay, not all the times, sometimes developer says, I will respond with 200 OK, not only for get, even for post, even for put, even for patch, even for delete. That is also possible. So developer can use 200 OK as a common response code to give the responses for any APIs. That is his choice. Okay. But industry wise, 200 is for get, post 201, put patch 202, delete 204. This is about successful responses that we should know. Am I clear here until this point on the response codes, everyone? Okay, cool. And these response codes are pretty much important, guys, whether it is interview, whether it is a project, whether it is a learning thing. If you come and say, I don't know what is 200, okay, let me Google it. Okay, during the course, you can Google it. Once the course is completed, once you're on a job, once you're in the interview, you should memorize it, because these are now kindergarten questions, okay, in the interviews. These are like ABCD questions, not intelligent questions anymore. Then we'll move to client-side error. Now in client-side error, we have so many errors. 400, which means bad request. 401, which means unauthorized. 403, which means forbidden. 404 means not found. 415, not media, unsupported HTTP method. Sorry, this is 405. Then 415, media type not supported. 429, too many requests. Okay. So I've taken few common ones, including the negative scenarios. That's why I wanted to show this. Let me explain what is 400 bad request. So bad request error will come, 400 error will come when the request you are sending to server is invalid. Example, I will tell. If I have to ask a question to one of you, I might say, what is your, that's it. Ideally, I have to complete my statement, right? What is your name? What is your age? What is your salary? What is your expectation? But I'm saying, what is your, that's it. So no one can answer this question because it's an incomplete, incorrect question from Kiran. Then you will say, Kiran, complete the statement. Otherwise, my request is invalid, right? That is 400 bad request. Technically speaking, if I go to the login page or register page, when I click on register, you see I'm getting an error. Please fill out this field. This is a front-end validation, but the same error when it comes from backend, it becomes 400 bad request because I'm not submitting all the fields. Example, I'm giving spaces. You see, I'm giving spaces everywhere. And if I click register, so when the name and password that I have entered is missing, you will get an error 400 bad request. Okay. Now ignore this error 419 because this website is throwing some wrong errors. Let me try login, or let's try another example. Excuse me. Okay, let the page load. I'll come back there. So whenever you enter invalid data or missing data and you click on submit button or save button, then you will get this. Please fill all the fields. Please fill mandatory fields. So those errors are mapped to 400 bad request. Then you have 401 unauthorized. This error will come when the username and password is incorrect or the credentials are expired or the user credentials are missing. Then you get 401 unauthorized. So if I type an invalid username, invalid password, click on login, we will get an error, invalid credentials. This is English message, but in the backend, server is sending 401 unauthorized. because my credentials are invalid. Then you have 403 forbidden. Forbidden error comes when, okay, this forbidden error comes after you have logged in. 401 comes before you have logged in or during logged in. So 403 forbidden means you have logged in and you are trying to do some action for which you don't have access permissions. Okay. Example, I have logged in into my HR portal and I'm trying to cancel my leaves, but I get an error saying you cannot cancel the leaves after 5 days. Now it is 10th day. So I'm trying to cancel my leaves on the 10th day of applying. But usually the rule is within 5 days you can cancel. After 5 days you cannot cancel. Only admin can cancel them. So then I get this error 403 forbidden in the backend saying you are trying to do something for which you don't have permissions or for which you don't have access rights. Then you have 404 not found. This error will come when the request you are sending to server is no longer found on the internet. So if I type google.com, let's wait for the. Okay, google.com has come. This is success 200. Now if I type google.com/kiran.html, okay, there is no page on Google reserved for Kiran. Let us see what happens. We got an error 404. So it says the requested URL kiran.html is not found on the server. So that is what I'm explaining. 404 not found. So what is not found? Kiran.html is not found. So when you make such kind of mistakes, or it is probably valid only, but today it does not exist. So whatever path you are trying to access, whatever file you want to access, if the file does not exist, you will receive this error. Then you have 405 unsupported HTTP method. So this error will come when the HTTP method you have used is not correct. So developer told you, Kiran, try to test the API with the post method. But instead of post, I'm typing put and testing the API. Then I will get this error because the method I'm trying is not correct. Another example, developer says, Kiran, try with put. No, instead of put, I will try with delete. Then I'll get this error. So when the HTTP method you have used is not correct, you will get this error. Okay, 405. Then 415 media type not supported. So this error will come when the content type is not correct. Now, which content type? Here we have seen under request headers, content type, meaning the format in which the request is going to server from the client. So the client is sending in JSON, but actually supported format is XML. But I'm intentionally sending in JSON, which is not supported in my project. Then you will get 415 media type not supported. So when the content type is invalid, you get this error. Then 429 too many requests. When you test the same API again and again, meaning you are hitting the server continuously like a performance test, like a load test, then you might get this error 429 too many requests, meaning you have exceeded the limit of hitting the APIs on the server in the given time frame. Server will now block you softly and says too many requests, which means the client side error. You are making the mistake by hitting the server more number of times. This error will come. We can validate all these things in Postman tool based on the project requirements, but these are the common response codes you get. So please confirm if are you clear with 400 4xx series response codes. Whatever is popular, whatever you should know, I have explained them. Is that clear for everyone? Fantastic, thank you. Now let's move to 5xx, the last family. Here we have 500, which means internal server error. Then 503, which is service unavailable. Now 500 internal server error means it's a temporary error on the server side because of which the page you are trying to access or the API you are trying to access fails. But it's a temporary glitch only. If you try after 5 minutes, it will work. Or if you try after a few seconds, few minutes, it will work. The next one is very dangerous. 503 service unavailable. This error will come when the server is completely not available. Maybe the server is having software updates or hardware updates. The server is going through a restart. The server is probably shut down. The server probably does not have power supply, or the server probably does not have internet supply. Then you get this error. The difference between 500 and 503 is very simple. If I'm making a phone call to one of you and you're already speaking to someone else, I get a busy tone. That is temporary. That is 500 error. Because after a few minutes, you will disconnect and I can talk to you. That is 500 error. But if you have switched off your phone or you are in a zone where there is no network and I'm trying to call you, I cannot even reach you for the next 30 minutes or 1 hour. That is 503 service unavailable. Right? So we need to test our APIs for these response codes based on the test case that you write. If you want to know more response codes, you can always Google it, and I can show you HTTP response codes. Go to this website on the Google. Just Google for HTTP response codes and go to developer.mozilla.org. Here they have explained all the response codes that you see. Under informational category, they have explained few. Under success, they have explained few. Under redirection, they have explained a few. Under client-side errors, they have explained a few. Then on the server side also, they have explained a few. So I'll give this URL. My notes has all this information. Once I have the final list of participants, I will be sharing the notes. So don't worry about anything. You will get the notes. So this website has got all the response codes. And this is about our client and server architecture. Now, is it really a real, genuine client and server architecture, or am I faking? Right? Let's try to find it out. So if you go to
Sir,
any
I just
website,
have one quick question.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So in interview, they also ask like if you are getting 500 error or 503. So as a tester, how would you resolve it? So are we expected to also know the resolution of these errors, especially server side errors?
No, see, server errors cannot be fixed by you. Client side errors can be fixed by you because you made the mistake. Server errors are coming in spite of your request being valid. So developers, DevOps people have to troubleshoot your 5xx errors. Okay, 4xx is your responsibility. 5xx is DevOps developer's responsibility.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have sent a request, which is this one on the browser, which is a client, and this is the response I have received from server. I will demonstrate this client and server architecture now practically. To see the client and server architecture, right click on the browser, click on inspect, go to the network tab. This is where you will see the traffic going from client to server. Now refresh the browser so the request goes from browser and it will be recorded here. So the request I'm sending is http bin.org/JSON. That is my request. And that is what you see here. So click on it. And you have some subtabs: headers, preview, response, initiator, timing. Come to the headers tab. If you come to general, first thing you see is request. You see here request URL, meaning what request you have sent. So okay, so this is done. Let me use this color. Okay, this is done. And here only you will see protocol, which protocol we have used, HTTP. So protocol is also shown to you. And here you see request method. So which method is going to server when you type anything on the browser? So it is a GET request. So this is also shown to you practically. Then if you see here, request headers, accept header is going. So server is told by client that I will accept HTML, I will accept XML, I will accept images, etc. And then accept language is English United States. Connection is keep alive, meaning client and server should be connected. And user agent, which is who am I? So it is telling that the request is coming from Windows operating system. My computer is Windows and mine is a 64-bit computer. And the request is coming from Chrome browser. As you see, it is Chrome browser only. And the version of Chrome I'm using is 143. If you want, you can validate here also. Help about Google Chrome. See, 143. So user agent is also there. So I've shown you the request headers. Then you see here response code or status code, which is 200 OK, success family. So I've shown you response code, OK, which is response description. Then you have response headers, connection, content length, which is the size of the response body, 429 bytes. Content type is JSON because I got the response in JSON format. The date when the response is given is today. And the server which gave the response is this server and this version of the server. G Unicorn 19.9.0. That is the server which gave response. So I've shown you even response headers. Then if I want to see the response, you see on the response section. If you go to response tab, you see the entire response body. That is what is API response. So now you see I have circled everything. So I've really shown you the client and server architecture happening on your browsers. So whatever I've explained is a realistic scenario. Okay. So this is client and server architecture. So we are still in chapter 1. The next topic that we should be talking about in the next class is 3-tier architecture model, where I'm going to talk about what is front end, what is back end, what is server, and where APIs are developed. After that, we'll move to chapter 2, where I'll talk about the evolution of APIs, the technologies of APIs, syntax of an API, examples of live APIs on the internet. That's my second chapter. That is what we are going to discuss in the next class. And the next class will be on Monday. Saturday, Sundays, we don't have classes. So 26th January, we will have class, no holiday, because it's just 1 hour class. I know it's Republic Day, but we can still have the class. Same timing. The link will change because Monday onwards, it is only for participants who have already enrolled. I've already got 8 nominations. So others who are interested, please complete your nominations if you are looking forward for this course. Let me know or my team know about your enrollment so that I can start giving you access to my training material and also the videos from Monday's class onwards. Until today, you will get the videos on our website. Feel free to go through it anytime. Okay. Okay, before we sign off, are there any questions for me?
Kiran, actually nowadays I'm just seeing there was in JD, there is with respect to API testing, there HR was asking me related to prescriber and subscriber. What exactly it's about in API testing?
Subscriber and
Publisher.
publisher. Okay, very simple. Okay, I think I've closed the diagram. Let me open it. Okay, you are seeing my screen share, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here the client is sending a request and the server is processing it and giving a response, right?
Mm.
So here, in a simple way to tell you, client is the subscriber, server is the publisher, because server is publishing responses Client is accepting it, client is receiving it, so client is the subscriber. Okay, that is one way to tell. Second way to tell is non-technical. I will tell you first. So now I'm talking about performance testing. Okay, let us say. And Geeta is not interested in performance testing. She's interested only in API testing. But I might have 3 more students who are interested in performance testing. So they're inquiring, Kiran, do you teach performance testing? Can you talk about this? So I'm talking 3 minutes about performance testing. So I am the publisher because I am publishing information. Is Geeta listening to performance testing? No, because she is not interested. So you are not my subscriber. But Piyush is listening because he asked for it. So he is my subscriber. Radhika is listening. Raghavan is listening. Shramik is listening. So because they wanted to learn performance, they asked the question, so they are listening. So they are my receivers, meaning they are my subscribers. So the concept of publisher and subscriber comes in an environment where the server is giving lot of messages and not every client will receive it. The client who wanted that response only will receive it. Like the person who asked it only will receive it. So in that scenario, you have the concept of receivers, nothing but subscribers. So those who subscribers have asked for the request. So they got it. Okay. The publisher
Yeah.
is always server.
Okay. But why, specifically in JD and all, they're highlighting as if it is different, something different. Like,
So in APIs, you have some new technologies like gRPC technologies, GraphQL technologies, WebSockets are also there. So when the technology your project using is different, then these terminologies are also important because your developer does not develop it as a normal server. So they say, it's a publisher. It will continuously publish lot of messages and only people who are subscribed will receive it. I'll give one more example. I think it becomes easy. In WhatsApp, you have so many channels, right? Only if you subscribe to the channel or follow the channel, you get information what is related to that channel. But I won't get it just because Geeta is getting it. You subscribed it, so you are getting updates from that channel in WhatsApp or on YouTube. I'm not subscribed, so I won't get. So YouTube is a server, it will continue to publish everything. It will post thousands of messages, thousands of videos, thousands of write-ups. Only who subscribed for it will receive it. Now, Kiran is not receiving. Doesn't mean I'm not a client. I am also a client, but I did not subscribe to that message, that channel. But Geeta is receiving it because Geeta subscribed because she wants that information. Okay, that is one perfect live example I can give you. So the technologies as they change, example gRPC technology, you have to talk about these things. And if you're using WebSockets, you have to talk about this JD only that you're talking about.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Sir, just a one quick question. As she had just mentioned about a couple of things with the perspective of the publisher and subscriber, you have explained WebSocket and all those. So in our API testing, are we going to touch base anything related to these things also?
No, in my course, I don't have anything on publishers and subscribers. But again, if it is something that you want, I can spend one class and explain it.
I still remember that there was a one class which you mentioned, which is like, end of the class, end of the complete course, wherein if you can just, touch base on all these things, that would be really very nice. Probably at least from the high level standpoint, we get to know it.
Sure. See, sharing knowledge, I will never deny it. We can certainly discuss in one extra class or 2 extra classes. After our curriculum that I promised is completed, definitely we can touch base, answer your realistic questions. Because it is not rocket science, we can easily discuss. I can easily explain all those things.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions from anyone else? Okay, I hope the class went well today. We are still in chapter 1, but one pending topic is there, which is 3-tier architecture, where I will talk about front end, back end, server, and database, and how API fits there, and how your mindset should be working when you are testing APIs. With that, we conclude chapter 1 in the upcoming classes on Monday. But Monday is, like I said, it's only for nominated or enrolled folks. Again, I repeat, if you are interested to enroll, please talk to Isha team and get the enrollment done. If you have any questions technically, put it on the WhatsApp group. I will answer it on the WhatsApp group, or if you have my number from the group, you can WhatsApp me separately, whichever you want, in the group or separate. My answer will come to you. And we will form a new WhatsApp group, and the discussions will happen only in that group. And I will exit this WhatsApp group, which is currently there, because it's only for demos. Okay. Thank you very much. I will be there in the group until Tuesday. But yeah.
Sir, one last question. Sorry, I just got it. So, this client server 2-tier architecture or 3-tier architecture, or what API course which we are learning. So, does this approach changes like in the past or deprecated monolithic applications compared to current ongoing cloud SaaS applications which are microservices based? Is there any change in API technology?
See, API technologies have evolved a lot from the last 25 years, and this client and server architecture is still the same. It has not changed. This architecture is valid from the last 20 years. Whether you take GraphQL APIs or gRPC APIs or WebSockets or SOAP APIs or remote procedure calls, this architecture remains the same. There won't be any change.
Okay, so
Does
this
it?
is still relevant in cloud native applications as well.
Yeah, definitely. See, whatever I have explained now, right, client and server architecture, if you say I'm working on an application and it needs internet, this architecture I have explained is appropriate and valid. Whether you are testing APIs or web applications, whether you are doing functional testing or API testing or performance testing or security testing, this architecture is still valid. It's a general concept, but we are talking more into API level only, but it's a general topic that's valid for a developer, that's valid for you, that's valid for any domain, that's valid for any type of testing. Okay.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Cool. Good. I'm happy questions are coming in towards the end. Anyways, that's good. Thank you very much, guys. If you still get some more questions, feel free to put it on WhatsApp. Whenever I get chance, I will check it out and start responding to you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Then you have good night. Happy weekend. I'll see you guys again on Monday. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.